Good evening and welcome to Talking Sports with Evan. Uh, took a week off last week for the podcast, but I'm back here tonight and going to talk some Green Bay Packers. That's going to be the biggest portion of this show. Talking about the Green Bay Packers as a frustrated Packer fan. And I think it's fair to say that all Packer fans right now are frustrated. And that's what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be airing some of my frustrations I'm having right now. And if you have frustrations with the Packers, go ahead and comment. Or you can shoot a message to me on X at Evan with Sports, on Facebook or YouTube. YouTube, Talking Sports with Evan. That's where you can find the videos of the show. You can also find the podcast version on Spotify. Make sure to give a follow, make sure to give a like, make sure to subscribe to Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and on Spotify. Well, if you've been a fan of the show for a while, obviously a different background than you're used to seeing when I do the podcast. Well, my office is currently unavailable as an office at the moment. So got to do it different room for the podcast. And yeah, that's why it looks very different in the background. But with that said, like I said, a lot of the show is going to be sharing frustrations with the Green Bay Packers. They fell to the Carolina Panthers 16-13 a week after beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 35-25 after the Packers just completely annihilated Pittsburgh in the second half of that game. They outscored the Steelers 28-9 in the second half after being down 16-7 at halftime against the Steelers. And that second half, you're like, okay, things are looking good. Things are looking very promising for the Packers now that they offensive looked great in the second half. The defense looked very strong in the second half, and they made Aaron Rodgers' life very difficult defensively in that game. And Jordan Love probably had one of his best games since the playoff game in Dallas. But unfortunately, the thing that you get frustrated about with this Green Bay Packers is they're going up against a team they should beat. They're going up against a team they should beat. They're going up against a 4-4 Carolina Panther team that Bryce Young is returning from injury, and the Packers should go out and beat the Carolina Panthers. And the Packers end up losing the Carolina Panthers 16-13. The two losses on the Packers schedule, the Packers have scored a grand total of 23 points. The Cleveland Browns, which tip your hat to the Cleveland Browns. They have a great defense, especially defensive line, and they lose to the Carolina Panthers, who unfortunately the Packers couldn't score when they needed to. Few things about this game I do want to mention. One, we're very quick to throw out the phrase, Jordan Love had a horrible game. That is not true. Jordan Love played fine. He had one really bad throw, which was an interception. It was a 1st and 10, led to Carolina touchdown to put them up 13-6, and ultimately probably was the difference in the winning and losing of the game. But overall, that was really the only bad play that Jordan Love had. Now, he did miss some passes here and there, but ultimately his stat line, 26-37 for 273, isn't that bad. Like, Jordan Love played fine. Josh Jacobs, 87 yards on 17 carries, averaged 5.1 yards per carry, probably his best game of the season. And Romeo Doubs, 7 catches for 91 yards. Watson, 2 for 58, 51 of that on one play. And Luke Musgrave, 3 for 34, who's going to be now replacing injured Tucker Kraft, who left the game with ended up being a torn ACL. But like I said, Jordan Love played fine. Jordan Love didn't play awful. He didn't play great, but he didn't play awful. And he is he did not. The Packers did not lose because of Jordan Love. The reason why the Packers lost is because of the guy in the headset that looks somewhat similar to mine, except his doesn't really have a cord anymore. Matt LaFleur. I put this blame of the loss to Carolina pretty much on Matt LaFleur's doorstep. The game plan for Carolina, again, he overcompensated against what Carolina was trying to do. Carolina was playing a lot of too high, two safeties deep to eliminate the big play, and his counter to Carolina playing with safeties back deep was to do a lot of bubble screens, do a lot of jailbreak screens, do a lot of swing passes to the running back in the backfield. Basically, a lot of throws behind the line of scrimmage. That was Matt LaFleur's game plan, and he did it too much. It's kind of like the whole jet sweep thing last year. He kept running jet sweeps, and if you saw him last season, I think there was one point in that year, if you saw Matt LaFleur run a jet sweep, you're going to rip your hair out if I had hair. But it got to the point that if Matt LaFleur ran another screen pass or a pass behind the line of scrimmage against Carolina, we were going to go insane. We were going to lose our minds because he over-relied on it. The first drive of the game, moving down the field. Savion Williams catches the screen pass, runs right into his blocker. Apparently, he thought the best way to get to the end zone was to run up the ass of Romeo Doubs. He runs into the back of Romeo Doubs. A bunch of Carolina Panthers jump on in there, and they punch the ball out. They recover. And it seems like the Packers' offense was out of sync for the most part ever since. The Packers didn't punt. I think they had 7 possessions. I might be wrong here. But they had many trips to the red zone. They went 7 of 13 on third down, 2 of 3 on fourth down, ran 63 plays. They didn't punt one single time. They outgained Carolina 369 to 265, outthrew them 265 to 102, and better yards per play 5.9 to 4.9. But unfortunately, the Packers couldn't score in the red zone, and Matt LaFleur seemed to completely lose his brain when it came to red zone efficiency in this game. And the red zone has been something that the Packers have done really well in overall, as they've done really well in the red zone this season overall. They've been fine. But against Carolina, again, Matt LaFleur decides to do too many behind the line of scrimmage passes throughout the game, and the Packers end up losing. And if I could have one phrase best represent Matt LaFleur's Green Bay Packers or Matt LaFleur as a play caller, it'll be Jekyll and Hyde. We've seen Matt LaFleur when he's in his bag, the Dallas Cowboy playoff game, the second half of the Pittsburgh game, the Detroit Lions Thanksgiving game 2 years ago. We've seen when Matt LaFleur is in his bag. But then we've seen when Matt LaFleur decides he wants to overemphasize something as well. Against Cleveland, it was overcompensating for Myles Garrett. Against Dallas, it was overcompensating for a kicker that could potentially nail a field goal from the 50-yard line. And against Carolina, it was overcompensating with screen passes and passes behind the line of scrimmage that ended up hurting the Packers in the long run. Think of the 3rd and 3 play in the infamous 4th and 8 play is what everybody's talking about. But if you look at that 3rd and 3 play, right before that, they run a little swing pass to Emmanuel Wilson. They telegraphed what they're going to do. They had receivers in stacked trips. You had 2 receivers on the line, one directly behind him. You motion Emmanuel Wilson. and you expect those three to block. But here's the thing. Carolina knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. Anybody with a brain knew what the Packers are going to do there. Matt LaFleur himself in his post-game press conference said that he had just ran the play before. But it's 3rd and 3. We're going to run that little swing pass, and it ends up losing 5 yards. Now you get 4th and 8. The 4th and 8 play, you can criticize Jordan Love all you want there. I won't, because 2 reasons. One, it's 4th and 8. You're just trying to make a play. You're just trying to hope somebody in your color uniform can make a play in the end zone at that point. We all point to the throw, but what you don't see if you watch the all 22 wide view, what you don't see unless you watch that is Romeo Doubs just stop. Now I get Romeo Doubs got shoved out of bounds, but Jordan Love didn't realize he got shoved out of bounds. I don't think he knew he got shoved out of bounds, and he just kind of threw it up thinking that Romeo Doubs is going to continue to follow the ball and try to make a play. Unfortunately, Romeo Doubs got pushed out of bounds and just stopped. So the play looked a lot worse than it actually was. But I'm not going to crucify Jordan Love in that situation because, again, it's 4th and 8, and you're trying to make a play. The one throw in the game that I will get on him about is it's 1st and 10. You have Romeo Doubs coming open on a drag route, a deep drag across the middle. Instead, in a very windy day, you just chuck it downfield to a double covered, at that time, eventually triple teamed Christian Watson, and you basically arm punted it on 1st down. That's the throw that I criticize Jordan Love for. Because, again, it is 1st and 10. You got plenty of time to get your drive going, but you lost patience and you try to chuck it downfield. And I also put part of that blame on Matt LaFleur too, because your constant reliance on the passes behind the line of scrimmage, he gets a little impatient and tries to make something happen out of nothing. So it goes on both, but Jordan Love needs to know better and not make that throw. Take what the defense gives you. Eventually, you're going to get them out of that too high safety if you're attacking the checkdowns and the underneaths. This game was a disaster pretty much all the way around. The Packers couldn't stop the run. Quay Walker's been having a good season overall. He's been having a solid year, attacking the line of scrimmage, seems to be a little bit better on reading his keys and making plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. But against Carolina, he had an awful game. He was late in deciding on what he wanted to do. He was letting the running back and blocker come to him instead of attacking the line of scrimmage, and Dowdle took advantage of that. And the Carolina's front 5 offensive linemen and tight ends took advantage of that and getting their hands on him and getting between him and the ball carrier. The defensive line didn't help. But things that Quay Walker has done well all season long, it's like Quay Walker forgot what he's done well all season long. He played well in Pittsburgh. He played well in Dallas. He played well the first couple weeks of the year. Again, overall, he's played fine. But for some reason on Sunday, he decided to have a horrible game. Tucker Kraft being out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. Another disaster from that game. And it started out with a linebacker defensive end of Carolina taking out the knees of Sean Ryan, which forced Tucker Kraft basically to run right into the feet of Sean Ryan. And he ended up, now he needs surgery on his ACL. And again, he's out for the remainder of the year. Those reasons right there is why the game was a disaster. The Packers couldn't stop the run, and they lost Tucker Kraft for the season. And then Matt LaFleur. That 4th and 8 call was ridiculous. First of all, the 3rd and 3 call was ridiculous. Run the ball up Josh Jacobs. If you're going to go for it on 4th down anyway, I trust Josh Jacobs to get me 3 yards on 2 tries than I do whatever that 4th and 8 play. And look at the personnel you had on the field for that 4th down play. If that was the personnel you had available on 4th and 8, you should have kicked the field goal or maybe ran a better play on 3rd down. I get it if Romeo Doubs or Malik Heath doesn't whiff on a block, maybe, just maybe, Emmanuel Wilson can get enough for the 1st down. But at the end of the day, like I said, I trust Josh Jacobs' ability, and he wasn't even in the game on 3rd down, but I trust Josh Jacobs' ability to get 3 yards in 2 tries. Maybe you should have stuck to the ground game there. It worked in the red zone on the series where you tied it up at 13 apiece. The ground game worked well in the red zone. Maybe you should have tried that. But you should have took the field goal on 4th down. And you even called a timeout, and that's the best you came up with. That's the best play. That's the best play that you came up with after having to take a timeout because the play clock was running down because guys weren't lining up where they were supposed to. That's the best play you could come up with. And then you run the offense back out there. And again, guys are struggling to get lined up where they were supposed to be. To me, that falls on coaching. And that falls on Matt LaFleur. Why is it when we play a team that is inferior to us, if the Packers are the team that everyone says they are, Carolina, Cleveland, Arizona, Cincinnati, you all should be dog walking those teams. Instead, you play down to those opponents. And it seems like every year during the Matt LaFleur era, there is a game that makes you scratch your head and ask, what happened? I'm going to go back to 2019 and look at the Packers' 2019 NFL schedule, and I'm going to try to find that game. There was a 34-27 loss against Philadelphia on Thursday Night Football. Rodgers threw for 422 yards, and Devontae Adams had 180 yards passing. You think that's a game they should have won. The Chargers, 26-11 final score. A game that the Chargers were an inferior opponent to you, but again, you went to LA and you struggled. And those are the 2 head-scratching losses in the 2019 season. If I go to the 2020 season, during the 2020 season, the Packers lost to Minnesota 28-22 on November 1st, game they probably should have won. They lost to Indianapolis in overtime 34-31 on November 22nd. Again, 2 games that the Packers should have won. And those are 2 of 3 losses in the regular season for the Packers had. Those are 2 games they should have won in 2020. If I look to 2021 season, you have a 34-31 loss against the Vikings in Week 11, where Rodgers had 385 yards. That's a game they should have won. And then they lost to Detroit 37-30 in the last week of the regular season. And then, of course, there's a 13-10 playoff loss against the 49ers, where the special teams pretty much gave them free points. If you go to the 2022 season, you have the Giants, the Jets, Washington. Those 3 games are 3 games you should have won. And guess what? You ended up missing the postseason after losing to Detroit 2016. You also lost to them 15-9 during the regular season as well. Those are 2 other games you probably should have won. 2023, you have the Raiders, the Broncos, the Giants. 3 games that you had no business losing. So the point I'm trying to make, and we get to 2024, you 2024, you look at that schedule, and you have 2 losses to Minnesota. One of them you probably should have won, 27-25 final at Minnesota, December 29th. Those are 3 games, like I said, in that year the Packers should have won. So the point I make, seemingly every season, the Packers have one of those games that make you ask, what the bad word? And now in 2025, we've had 2, Cleveland and Carolina. And it's very frustrating. It's frustrating knowing that these are games that you have no business losing. But unfortunately, you lost. And now, if the Packers lose to the Eagles on Monday Night Football game that I'm going to be at, if the Packers lose to the Eagles on Monday Night Football, and I know it's only week 10, but they're basically out of the playoff at this point, and they're going to have to work and claw and fight their way to get back into the playoff race. You have the Giants on November 16th. You have the Vikings on November 23rd. You have the Lions on Thanksgiving. You have the Bears on December 7th. And then you close the year with Denver, Chicago, Baltimore, and Minnesota. All very tough games. Now, the Packers' goals are all out in front of them on what they want to do this season, but they need to figure it out, and Matt LaFleur needs to be more Jekyll than he is Hyde. That's basically it at the end of the day. Matt LaFleur needs to be more Jekyll than he is Hyde, because if Jekyll comes out, if Hyde comes out, we're going to see what we saw against Carolina. But I don't understand why we can't have the team ready to play every week. Every time we play a team that should be inferior, it seems like we're not focused, we're not ready, we shoot ourselves in the foot. The Packers are the reason why the Packers lost to Carolina. Too many penalties, too many not able to do anything in the red zone. They had 7 penalties for 42 yards, and they seem to always come at the most inconvenient time. And their fumble happened on the opening drive after the Packers just got a big 4th down stop on a fourth down situation that ended up getting called for a hold, and the Panthers had to punt, and it kind of like snowballed from there. But I'm to the point that if the Packers do win a Super Bowl during Matt LaFleur's tenure as coach, it's going to be in spite of him instead of because of him at this point. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that's not accurate, but that's the writing on the wall that I'm seeing. It's going to be in spite of him instead of because of him. And some of the conversations this week have been around the sports talk in the Milwaukee area has been, what does Matt LaFleur do well? I think Matt LaFleur is a very good play caller, very good play designer when he is in his bag. But as I said, too often Mr. Hyde shows up instead of Jekyll, and we saw the disaster that we saw on Sunday. And a couple other things I kind of want to get out there off my chest too. Jordan Love is having a good year. Jordan Love is having a very good season. I'll say it again. Jordan Love is having a very good season. He's completing 70.8% of his passes. He's got over 2,000 yards throwing. He's got 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. The way we talk about him and his interceptions, when you look at his interception total, you're thinking it's like he was at this point last year when he had, I think, 11 last year at this point. And he ended up ending the regular season with 11 as well. But I think he had 11 at this point last year, and he's got 3 on the year. He threw 1 against Cincinnati. He threw 1 very bad one against Cleveland, and he threw 1 bad one against Carolina. Technically should have been 2. I get it. But Jordan Love has just 1 game this year where he's completed less than 70% of his passes. As I said, Jordan Love is having a fine year. Jordan Love is not the reason why they lost to Carolina. He's having a fine season. Now, there's some risks that you wish he wouldn't take. I get that. I respect that. But again, Jordan Love is having a fine year. Now, he needs to come out against Philadelphia and play a great game on national TV. Now, that's what we do need him to do. But I think the offensive line also needs to improve. And the offensive line has shown some improvement since they've been healthy. But now Aaron Banks got hurt, and Sean Ryan had to finish the game at left guard. Now, here's my thing. If that happens again, put Josh Morgan at left guard and put Sean Ryan at right guard. Sean Ryan's better on the right side than he is the left side. And I think we've seen that Jordan Morgan can play both left and right guard at a pretty decent level. Sean Ryan did not play well at left guard at all on Sunday. Personally, stop the rotation altogether and just pick one and let them be the player. There's a lot of people, too, are pointing to Elgton Jenkins and criticizing his play this year. Josh Myers had Elgton Jenkins as his left guard, and he had Sean Ryan pretty much as his right guard after Jordan Morgan got hurt last year. Josh Myers had pretty good guards next to him during his tenure in Green Bay. The guards do help the center a little bit. Elgton Jenkins has a revolving door at both left guard and right guard for most of this season. I think that's part of Elgton Jenkins' problem. There's constantly a rotating door. He's not even knowing who's going to line up to him from one play to the other. Checks get missed. Twists get missed. Stunts get missed. The more the offensive line plays together, the better they do look. So, not really any Eagles preview tonight, except you got to stop the run. You got to force Jalen Hurts to beat you with his arm. You can't let Barkley run wild on you at Lambeau Field on Monday night. You got to stop the run. You got to stop the run, and guess what? You're going up against a similar defensive scheme that you just saw with Carolina. You got to just be patient and dink and dunk your way down the field and get Christian Watson involved. And Tucker Kraft injury is going to be a huge loss. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they have no chance at the Super Bowl without Tucker Kraft, but guys like Luke Musgrave is going to have to step up. Musgrave showed flashes his rookie year. Last year was lost to an injury. It's going to be on Tucker Kraft. I'm sorry, Luke. It's going to be up to Luke Musgrave from here on out to replace some of that production that Tucker Kraft gave you. Now, he's not going to be able to do for you everything that Tucker Kraft did for you. He's not a good blocker, but he does have good hands. He's fast. He's athletic. And we saw flashes, again, his rookie year showing the type of weapon he can be. And I think the Packers need to adapt the offense a little bit and use use Luke Musgrave the best way he can to his strengths and not use him as another Tucker Kraft. And I think some of those shorter routes, you could probably use Christian Watson on those a little bit and let him use. I know he's a good deep threat, but run him on some of those drags or those uh, sideline routes that he hit Tucker Kraft on that he had big gains on. Hit Christian Watson on some of those. But the big thing is I want to see the Packers get a victory in Philadelphia, and I want to see them come out healthy, and I want to see them be consistent. That's the word of the day. I'm going to be a Sesame Street here. Consistency. That's the word of the day. I want to see the Packers be more consistent. And that is what I'm hoping for. This has been Talking Sports with Evan. I appreciate you all watching, appreciate you all listening. I will be back with you next week, hopefully talking about a Packer victory. Have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you later.